Lauri Albert. I'm so happy to finally meet you. Welcome to Something Super Spiritual. I feel like we have known each other forever, and now we're actually just finally meeting each other.
I know. It's so much fun. I love when there's that connection, that instant connection between people. And, I'm sorry, it's not like I'm hitting on you or anything, but,
Yeah, that's okay. You can
there's
hit
like
on
an
me.
instant
It might
connection.
not go very far, but you can hit on me. You guys, so Lauri Albert is an amazing psychic medium. She's out there doing her own work. She's all over the place. She and I saw you, Lauri. Let's see. I was on Cheryl Murphy's Living Beyond.
Seeing beyond living transformed.
I always get living and seeing mixed up.
I
Thank
know.
you. Seeing Beyond Living Transformed. Cheryl Murphy, amazing. I was on her show, and then I saw you on her show. And then I was on her show again, and then I saw you on her show again. And in the whole time I'm saying hi to you guys through the chat, and you're like, oh my God, I gotta meet you. And I'm all, oh my God, I gotta meet you. So thank you for being here. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
So, you know what, Lauri, let's just start right at the beginning then. So here you are doing this work. We were just talking where we come from the same era. And what was life like for you? Were you always connected to spirit? Did you experience this as a child?
Well, interestingly, I was raised, and this is sort of an age-old, I think, experience for a lot of people, but I was raised very Catholic.
Okay.
Very Catholic, right? And I would go into church and I felt good being there, but there was something wrong with it. Okay, this is like in my 8-year-old mind, right? I didn't like the idea. I'll just be completely honest.
Yeah.
I didn't like the idea that I had to confess my sins to the priest. Because I remember thinking, well, if I'm supposed to be talking to God, why can't he just know? I can say I'm sorry. Why can't he just, know? So there was that, right? So there was all of these little questions. And that's been my sort of journey ever since then. I question everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would have these weird things happen to me when I was young. And it wasn't like I saw spirit. I would see shadows, but I didn't know that that was anything, right? So I would have these weird things happen. But then, fast forward many years of questions and uncertainty and really like, is this good? Is this bad? And blah, 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 all of that stuff. To about 22 years ago, something like that, I started to meditate. And once I started to meditate, and then all of a sudden, I started seeing these blobs coming in, and I was like, what are these blobs? And it's a whole big long story, which I won't get into, but the blobs turned out to be my spirit guides, right? And so they were like, do you want to would you like to continue this on? Would you like to expand whatever this is, or do you want to not? It's time to decide. And you don't know me very well, but come on. Am I one to shy away from it,
No.
from a challenge like that?
No.
No, not at all. So yeah. So I'm like, sure, let's do this thing. Well, it turns out that 2 doors down, I live in a cul-de-sac. 2 doors down lives a medium.
Ah.
What are the odds? And of course, I didn't know that until that thing happened with the blobs,
Yeah.
I lovingly call them the blobs. But anyway, so
I
yeah.
love
And
that.
so
I love that.
this whole snowball thing just started happening. And, yeah. And so here we are today, when you surrender to what spirit has for you. I know. I love that. Love that. When you surrender to what spirit has for you, amazing things will happen. So that's my story in a nutshell.
That's a really good story. I love that. Thank you. What then, how did you end up being, well, like a spokesperson for spirit? How did you end up being in this chair, in this seat, doing this work with your YouTube and
Yeah,
shows?
great question, because I didn't know what any of this stuff was. I didn't know the words. I didn't know.
Mhm.
I had heard the word clairvoyant. I had no idea what it was, right?
Yep.
Nor did I think that I was one, because I never saw stuff, right? So once I started developing myself, this is about 20 years ago or so. once I started developing myself, I started recognizing things like, oh, that sort of thing. And what ended up happening was that I started to realize that I felt stuff versus seeing stuff, right? My father passed away in, what year was that? It must have been 2000. My father passed away in the year 2000. And I was so, thank you, Dad, so fortunate to be in the room with him when he passed. And, my mother was beside herself with grief, obviously, right?
Oh, sure.
But I remember looking it up in the corner of the room, and it wasn't like I saw him, my dad, up there, but I knew he was there, right? So I was like, Dad, I got this. I'll take care of her. Don't worry about it, right? And that was really, it was one of the first, I can't remember back that far really, to be honest, but that was one of the first things that actually happened to me, right? And so I started to realize, then I started doing all the research and stuff, I started to realize that I am an empath.
Yep.
I was, from the time I was really young, I would walk through a store and go, oh, that person's so sad today. Oh my gosh. And then I would feel bad for them. Or I would be like, ooh, I need to walk this way because that person's energy is not good. Right. So I remember, all of this stuff. And I started realizing that was a gift. I started realizing that it was a gift. And then once I started, with my neighbor as my mentor, right? He started showing me stuff like this is what this is. This is what this is. And then he was like, you need to take this class over here. And so of course I'm taking these classes and, doing development circles and constant, 3 nights a week I was out doing this, and I had a child. And I was like, am I no, Spirit says you're doing the right thing. It's all okay. I'm like, all right, fine. So I started to learn that I was an intuitive, right? And then all of a sudden I started realizing, because I didn't know, and you tell me if you had the same experience, but I remember, like I said, I knew the word clairvoyant, but I thought that when you were a clairvoyant, you had to see a full-on apparition of spirit. Right?
Totally.
I thought and so I had never seen that. So of course I thought, oh, I'm not clairvoyant. I don't see anything. But that's so wrong.
Yeah, you bring up such a great point. Yeah, keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really kind of it. Once I started realizing that, that spirit doesn't work like that. Spirit is just like if you see a shadow, or if you you might see a video. This is the way I kind of work. I see sometimes videos in my head.
Totally.
And I always say to people, my head is a very strange place, but but it's true. I'll say, but I love it. I love being weird, embrace the weird. But I just started seeing videos in my head, or I would see for some reason, and I don't know if this is a past life thing for me, but I relate a lot to old Hollywood. Right. And so if somebody had, let's just say, if there is a spirit and that person had red hair and a big personality, I would be like, oh, I am seeing Lucille Ball. Is there a thing? Is
Totally.
there well, she had red hair and she had a bit, for whatever reason. So old Hollywood is so fascinating. Yeah. I know there's so much to say.
Yeah,
I know I just gave you a lot to unpack there.
I say that all the time, talking about that as your symbol for that experience. Spirit, the communication happens through our own spirit, our own filters and our own experiences. So if that is what spirit needs you to get to say, she has red hair and she's a fireball, she's funny, she's expressive, boom, there you go. I love how that happens. And I love how you talked about you had these expectations of your clairvoyance, because I talk about that a lot as well. For so long, I thought I was not clairaudient, because I had friends out there who were very clairaudient, and they talked about all these things they heard, right? Yeah. So I had these expectations and demands that I didn't realize I had. I expected to hear the voices with these ears on the outside. And when I realized, oh, that's not how it works, then I expected that I would hear other voices inside my head. And when that wasn't happening, I was like, oh, I guess I'm just not clairaudient. When the whole time I was, but my experience is, I get words, sentences that just plop into my head and paragraphs that just plop into my head. And here's the thing, whether we know it or not, I do believe that we are firing on all cylinders. Because before I recognized clairaudience within myself, I had this experience in a reading where, and this was during practice, and I didn't understand that I was picking up on words dropping in my head, but suddenly I knew his name was Michael, whomever I was dealing with on the other side, whomever was with me, their son, husband, whoever. And I was like, he feels like a Michael to me. He feels like a Michael. And so if our clairaudience, if we feel like we're not recognizing it because we don't understand it, they'll get it to us another way. And if you think about it, I was like, how was I able to feel the name Michael? And then after that, I was sitting with spirit trying to understand this. And I thought, well, and suddenly, they said to me, like, they were like, well, how does the name David feel differently than Michael? How does the name Eugene feel differently than Lewis? How does the name,
cool.
You know what I mean? And I was like, oh my God, there is different energy in all of these words. Obviously, I know that intellectually, but then I was getting it on my insides. And this is how spirit teaches us through all of this beginning. And I love what you pointed out too about that beginning of when the student is ready, the teacher arrives, and you have this medium synchronistically 2 doors down from you. So that was a setup by spirit, timing, synchronicity, boom, boom, boom. Suddenly you're with him. You're starting to understand all of this within us. And then you find development circles, and then other teachers come into your path. And I talk about this often too with everybody out there who's starting to open their eyes and their heart to this newness, this expansion, the truth of who we are, right? And the cynics out there who are the naysayers that they just cannot open their heart a crack to believe that any of this is possible, right? Oh, Lauri, I just completely lost my train of thought because so many things went through my head in that moment.
I know, right? You know what's so interesting about what you just said? I have a person really close to me that is just, I don't get it. I don't understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. The naysayer, and it's somebody really close to me that I love so much, but you can't force feed this to
That's
people.
what I was going to say. The naysayer, they're like, what do you mean? There's schools you can go to learn to be a medium. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. There's schools to go to learn to be a psychic. It's not like that. It's not like you wake up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to be a psychic. I'm going to be a medium. I'm going to be intuitive. It's not like you go and learn like through a textbook. What I have found through all of this education, through all of this learning, it's really learning the spiritual senses within ourselves and how they operate. What the clairvoyance means, how it feels, how the clairempathy, clairsentience feels, how the clairaudience works within us, because we're all a little bit different, right?
No, absolutely.
And when I went to Arthur Finley and I was with all of those people who had been doing this for decades, most of them, so many of them have been there for 3 years, 5 years, 9 years, and 19 years, so many times. That's when I learned all about the inner workings of myself. And you go there and there's no fear. You're all there for the same reason. You're all there doing the same thing. You all speak the same language. So, you're sitting there in your practice sessions with everybody all day, every day for 12 hours. And, you have permission, as it were, to be wrong. You know what? The only way we know we're right is because we know what it feels like when we're wrong. There's that sense of understanding. So many people ask, well, how do you know you're getting it from spirit versus your own mind? Well, through all of those practice years, you start to learn what it feels like on your insides when you're fully not in your power, when you're fully not connected. And it feels differently. And there are readings that happen to all. None of us are right 100% of the time, right?
Absolutely.
And we bounce in and out. We bounce in and out of our power through readings because we're having conversations where, or maybe we get scared because we see somebody's furrowed brow. And we're like, oh no,
Right.
oh no, I'm wrong. I look totally stupid right now.
Yeah.
But it's in
But you
all
know
of
what
that.
though?
Yeah,
There's a trust
there
in
is.
spirit that starts to develop. You've noticed that then?
That's
Yeah.
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that because
Mm-hmm.
it started with me. The whole trust thing started actually really, I started to understand it maybe about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago.
Yeah.
And before I do any sort of spirit work, like before I did this today, I open up my chakras, call in my spirit team,
Yep. Me too.
many, because we need a big spirit team.
Oh,
At
yeah.
least I did, right? and then the last thing I say before I do anything is, okay, spirit, whatever is supposed to come out of my mouth, allow it to come out of my mouth. I trust you, and honestly, that to me takes first of all, it takes the pressure off,
Totally.
but getting to that point where we trust,
Right. It's in that initial years of development where we really learn to step out and
it's the surrender.
Oh, yeah.
Here's me.
Well, okay. So you guys, by now, most of you know I have these tattoos on my arms. Fearlessly surrender, right? So for those of you on the podcast, I'm showing my arms right now here on the video, but this fearlessly surrender is such a huge message and reminder for me every day about that surrender to spirit, about that surrender to myself, to the ego, and recognize and trust that when we show up for spirit, spirit shows up for us, period. And no matter how nervous we might be, how, maybe we're having a really bad day, maybe we're not feeling well, maybe we're, just got some really bad news of whatever, and suddenly we have to be on in the next 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And surrender, let's be honest, it's about relinquishing control, right? Surrender means we don't have control. And sometimes we have to let go of that control and trust. And what does that mean? What does that mean? What are we're experiencing? We're experiencing fear in that moment because it's terrifying to let go of control.
Yeah.
So that's why I have this fearless. Yeah.
I think that to further that thought then as well is that's why some people don't believe in this. That's why they were like, well, I've never experienced any of that, because you have to be willing to give up the control.
Totally.
So important. Okay, can I ask you a question?
Yes, please. I love this.
Okay, this is taking a turn, right?
Good, go.
Do you have do you have a spirit guide in spirit, obviously, that is a very big man? I feel like I am seeing this man behind you that is really big, and he's like not in a bad way, not menacing or anything like that. But I feel like, do you have a spirit guide that is a bigger man who is like sort of? I feel like that he's very protective of you, and but he's really like nurturing at the same time.
Oh yeah.
Like pushing you.
That would be MJ.
Oh my gosh, he is like super present. Like if I was to take my little hands and pick you out of the screen there, I feel like that his energy would just take up the rest of the screen, which it does. So that is so cool. I love that. And he's very is he like one of your main spirit guides that he's with you all the time?
I call him my manager.
I love it. Oh my gosh. He's great. He's like, he is the one that is for you. Do you know what I mean?
He's been with me forever. From day one in this life.
I love that. That's so great. That is so great. I love that. Oh my gosh. So, yeah. I had to say that.
I love that. Thank you. I was thinking earlier we were going to talk about spirit guides. I guess that's how we got into this. So talk about your own experience with spirit guides then. When did you start to meet them? I know you got the blobs, but how did you know that they were what they were?
Well, it's really actually interesting knowing the like where I started with spirit guides and then where I am now, because it's like a drastic difference, right? So I would go to these, I told you I would take all these classes and did all these things, and every time I would go, do you know, you might have heard of Mavis Patilla?
Oh my God, I love her. I've worked with her. Yeah.
Loved her, right? I felt so drawn to her, right? So I went to this teaching thing that she did, this course or whatever, workshop or whatever. And she and James Van Praagh were there, and it was great, right?
I love
but
him
she
too.
says, okay, we are going to do the Meet Your Spirit Guide meditation. Okay. And it just totally symbolizes everything that I had up to that point. I instantly fell asleep as soon as she started. And then I instantly woke up when she was finished. Right? I mean, I totally fell asleep and then I totally woke up. And it wasn't like somebody nudged me. It was like, okay, so that was the day. And that had been my experience with meeting my spirit guides. I had no idea who they were, right? But I knew I had the blobs. So I called into this radio show. This is before the course with Mavis Patilla. And I called in this radio show with this lady. She was an intuitive, right? So I call in this radio and she goes, they don't care what you call them. They don't, it's not important to them, so it's just a matter of you acknowledging them. You can call them the blobs. And so I thought, all right, then until I learn better, I'm just going to call them the blobs. Right. So I started calling them the blobs, and I don't have it here right now anymore, but the blobs reminded me of the lava lamp.
Oh, sure.
Right?
Right?
Yeah. The morphing, I mean, that was what I saw in my head. So I keep a lava lamp. It's off camera right now, but I keep it there so I can always remember where I came from, remember where I started out. Right. So at any rate, finally, I started meeting my guides. I started and they change, sometimes they're, I have, a couple of, for a long time, I had a Native American chief who I loved, right? But he's kind of gone. And now it's St. Teresa and St. Teresa, the Little Flower. They're up there, right? Reminding me about my Catholic upbringing, the part that I loved.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and then I have my college boyfriend, right? So he's my gatekeeper. He's the one that like organizes everything on the other side. He's actually my partner. I've called him my partner. I did a radio show years ago, and I made a deal with him, and I said, okay, if you want to be my partner in this, I will do it, but I can't not do it without you, right? So we sort of made this deal, right? And then of course I have my mom and dad over here. But anyway, those are my spirit team and my guides, right? The ones that are with me all the time. But what has been interesting lately is that there is a guide that I talk to, and this is like, when I say lately, I mean the past, like, whatever, 10 years.
Sure.
There is a guide that is like my daily go-to, for readings and blah, blah, blah. And I have this relationship with this guide that is nothing like I've ever seen before, anybody talk about or anything before. And the way it kind of works with me in this guide is that I call it a he. I don't know if it's a he, right? But he tells me it like it is, and I tell him like it is. And we have arguments. We have laughing. He's funny. He's like, so I'll be in the middle of a reading, and he'll be like, say this. And I'll be like, I'm not saying it that way. I can't say it that way. That's rude. I have to say it like a little bit nicer or whatever. And I'll have these conversations with Spirit, my guide. And so it's so fascinating about that, because it's an ever evolving relationship.
Oh,
so
totally.
Okay with
it's so true, and it's just like relationships here. It's a give and take. It's a two-way street. You have to be proactive in a relationship. And I love it.
So cool. Isn't that amazing? I love that. Now, do you talk back and forth with MJ? You said his name was MJ.
The time. Yeah, all the time. I have about, I don't know, it's roll call when I sit down and call everybody in. I think it's about 16 or 17 names that I'm calling in, and they change every now and then. They change depending on what's going on in life. What challenges we're up against, what maybe
Yeah.
education we're into next and where we're headed. So,
Mhm.
but yes, MJ,
Love
I
that.
there's I have an open-ended dialogue with spirit constantly.
Yeah. And you know what? It's so funny because I've taken the last couple years to start calling that relationship. And this is what I tell people. I live what I call a spirit-led life,
Mhm,
you know?
mhm,
And it's not just like, it's kind of like, forgive me where I'm going with this, but it'll make sense in a minute. But it's kind of like meditating.
mhm.
Like some people think that they have to sit like this with the hand mudras and the thing and the quiet and the special music playing or whatever and the
Yep,
incense, all of that stuff. But
yep.
it doesn't have to be like that, right?
Nope.
So
Mhm.
it's the same thing with spirit guides, you know, like it can be whatever it is for you
Totally.
and it will evolve however it's right for you. And
Totally.
you don't have to sit in meditation like that. It
No.
can just be sitting, simply sitting,
Mhm.
same sort of thing. It's
Or
all
yeah.
about whatever's right for you. And
Mhm,
it's all good, whatever it is,
mhm,
So
mhm.
if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah, totally. I just had this conversation yesterday in a reading. Most of us, I believe, have a very difficult time with meditation, and
Yeah.
and we're such in the mindset of now. Now I need this now, and
Yes.
this nowness in meditation never feels like it's happening because our mind is like all over the place.
Right, right.
So, and I was like that at the beginning. I'm still like that in meditation. But
Mhm.
I don't go for sitting down and silencing my mind for meditations so much. I do occasionally, but meditation for me happens much easier and much more expansive when I'm running, when I'm, maybe cleaning, when
Yeah.
I'm,
Awesome.
whatever. I call them, the moving meditations. It's
Yeah.
very similar. It's like, and I learned about that, I don't know, 15 years ago when I walked the labyrinth. They were like, this is a moving meditation. You walk into
Yeah.
the center of the labyrinth
Hmm.
with things you want to get rid of that are no longer serving you. And then you walk out of the labyrinth,
Yeah.
focusing on the newness that you want to create and bring into your
Yeah.
world and manifest, right?
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, and I found myself really able just to concentrate on the ground in front of me, concentrate on my breath, concentrate on my steps. And that's all meditation is being right here in the present moment, period.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
anywhere else. So for me,
Yeah.
it's yeah. And I have been a runner for years. So that's when I just
So let
disappear
me ask
into
you this.
spirit.
What is your sign? I know that sounds like a pickup line too, doesn't it? What is your sign?
Leo.
Oh, right. You
Mhm.
told me that before. I'm an Aries. So of course we get along. That's
Of
why we get
course
along.
we do.
So yeah, but I will say the reason why I'm asking that is because I'm wondering if you're as stubborn as I am, because I am the stereotypical ram. I am so stubborn and impatient. Like I don't understand why like people laugh at me in terms of like my colleagues and different things, and they'll be like, oh, so you're going to do a new course. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to do a new course. And then like the next day it's up and they're like, how did you get it together that fast? I'm like, well, because that's just what I do. If I decide I'm going to do something, I'm just going to do it.
that's
why
that's an
why fuss
Aries.
around with it all, kind
Mhm.
of thing. So I always laugh about that.
That's
So
totally Aries. Yeah, yeah. Yep.
yeah, I know it comes back to bite me though. I will say it sometimes. you know
Well, that's true. You can't force a rose to bloom. So,
Ooh, I love that. I'm gonna so use that. I hope you don't mind if I steal that.
absolutely, go right ahead.
Oh my gosh, you can't force a rose to bloom. That actually makes me want to cry.
Oh,
Sorry. My
I love
grandmother,
that.
my grandmother's nickname for me was Rosebud.
Oh, well, of course.
So when you think about, oh my God, here I go. When you think about that, you can't force the rose to bloom. It has to just happen.
Mhm.
Oh, okay then. See, you're making me cry. I'll tell you
Oh,
what.
I love how spirit works. I mean, this is like
Yeah.
awesome.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So do you have the stereotypical Leo qualities?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say so. The stereotypical, meaning wanting to be in the spotlight, wanting to be the center of attention, wanting to, this big magnanimous, is that the right word? Just like overwhelming, overarching, expressive, blow open the doors, announce your presence. No, that is not me. No.
You should be, because like you are magnanimous. You are bigger than life. Oh, you're amazing.
Well, thank you. I mean, I accept that. Thank you. Yeah, but it's never been my go-to. I've never been one to want to have the focus on me. That's why doing this work was so difficult for me. Again, these messages on my arms is part of that, Yeah. It's me growing into that. It's, the one of the archetypes of the Leo is the king, and so one of my life lessons is growing into that king, growing into that sovereignty, and owning it in a way that is inclusive and of everybody. And that's natural for me. I'm just very inclusive. So it's really about, owning my power and being what I came here to be.
Yeah. My husband's a Leo. That's why. And he's not the stereotypical Leo either. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah. So it's, yeah.
I'm let's see, I'm Leo sun, Libra rising, and Sag moon. So
I don't know what I am.
You don't know the rest of your chart?
I shouldn't I?
You totally should.
I've done like 25 times and I forget. I just forget.
It's so fascinating to me. Oh my gosh. It's so true. I was just having a talk with my friend Sue about this earlier today. She's going to retire next April. And she was mentioning this new moon eclipse coming on Saturday. And I was telling her, hey, now's the time for manifesting. In fact, this is a message for all of you who hear this between now and Saturday. Big about a new moon manifesting, but new moon and eclipse, even more expansive, more power. So she was showing me that she's, got her moon in Gemini and blah, blah, blah. And it just really is so interesting. The synchronicities that are lined up within those archetypes that we come in with in that blueprint. Fascinating. And she told me, she said, after I retire, I really want to go deep into all this, but I don't understand how anybody can wrap their brain around this so quickly. And I was telling her, all of this work, the spiritual development, the spiritual evolvement, it's a lifelong process. It's not one course over a weekend or a 1 week spiritual retreat. It is an ongoing process all the time. It's like the tarot. Yes, we can learn to read the tarot, but it is a lifelong process. And I might even say lifetimes long process, where
100% for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot. I just love all of it. It's just also so fascinating.
Funny. Tell me if this, what I'm about to say, like rings true for you. So I'm 58 and it's just kind of like, I in the last however many years, 10 years or so, I've been really kind of looking back, which is what happens, I think, when you get older, right?
Oh, yeah.
You start looking back at your life as a whole and what was it about my life? Like, what are the lessons that I learned? And, who am I supposed to be with all of that information? And it's so fascinating because as I look back, when I was a kid, I started performing. I was a singer. From the time I was like, 5 or 6, I was taking the dance lessons and did all that stuff. And clearly I'm not scared to talk, right? So so it was just kind of a natural progression. And I started singing and I started performing. So I had this performance background and I performed with a group. It was a group where we sang actually for the veterans hospitals all throughout the United States. So that whole thing of me performing taught me, number one, like how to project my voice, how to hold it back, how to do all that stuff. But more importantly, right, because now at that point in my life, when I was in my 20s, that was all kind of second nature, right? The whole, all of that logistical stuff. But then I started realizing how to be tactful, how to be graceful or I shouldn't say graceful, but I mean like come at a situation with grace. That's kind of what I mean when I say that, right? And I started to learn all of this stuff on how to just be, right? So fast forward to my 40s. Yikes. Fast forward to my like late 30s and 40s, I started learning about spirit and about my connection with spirit. And I started realizing, oh my gosh, I'm thinking that I had to go through all of that stuff that I went through, the heartache, all of the stuff that you go through in your life later, early on, to get to where I am now. And now, interestingly, my mother was a teacher. I'm pointing over here because she's always on my left side, right? She was a teacher and she was very good with words. Her students loved her and that whole thing. But ever since she passed 5 years ago, that's when I started teaching. So she is like my guide. So it's kind of like really fascinating to me. I started out with I had to get that experience of performing and learning how to speak eloquently, or at least I try. I don't know, sometimes I don't do so good, but try to speak eloquently and all that stuff. And now all of a sudden here I am, I'm teaching, utilizing hopefully some eloquence, and that's so. Isn't it funny? Do you understand?
I absolutely understand.
Do you feel like your whole life has led up to this moment?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. 100%. Without a doubt.
Yeah. It's like an epiphany. I don't know why. It's like we should know that. That's like something that we should know in our lives.
Well, here's the thing. We come into this life, we come in with these plans for our purpose, these plans for our challenges, our struggles, and then we're here under this veil of amnesia, and we're like, holy crap, and we think this is the truth and this is who we are, and we start to work through all of that. We work through all of that. And then someday, hopefully, we wake up, open our eyes, and recognize, oh, we're so much more.
Yeah.
And at that point, where we call it, the midlife crisis, a lot of us recognize it in that moment in our 40s and 50s or whatever. And then, whatever happens. But this is how I've spoken about it over the last couple of years. All of that we have gone through in life, the struggles, the challenges, the traumas, the maybe the health issues, all of that, like you said, leads us to who we are now, right? So each one of us hold a different piece of the manual. Therefore, we can take that little piece of the manual and say, hey, I've been there. I can help you. This is how we're in service to humanity. This is how we're in service to each other, because we've got different pieces of the manual, and there's so many of us out there going through so many different things that other people will resonate with. Hey, I've been there. I can help. I've got the instruction book.
Yeah. And you know what is another aspect which is cool and it makes sense is that, I always like to say to people, it's no skin off my back if you don't want to come to me as a medium. It's totally fine.
Yep.
There are many, many, many thousands and thousands and thousands of mediums out there. You just need to find the one that you vibe with.
Totally.
And if you vibe with that person, there's a reason that you vibe with that person. So you can utilize their past experiences, and I guess it's kind of like anything that you do in life, but it's like, as spiritual, workers, we get to tap into that a little bit easier.
Yeah,
so,
completely. Yeah.
So fascinating.
I love it.
You are so, I just feel like, this is weird, or it may not be weird actually, because we're talking in the spiritual realm, but I feel like that I've made like a lifelong friend here. I just
totally.
There are some people that you vibe with and some people that you just don't. And it's all okay.
It's so okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And because years ago I had a situation where I was sort of teamed up with this other medium, and they talk about oil and water. It was like, and I just said, I'm going to respectfully bow out because I'm just not feeling that it's right. And boy, did I get crap for that. But the reality is that it's okay. There's nothing wrong with this other person. There was nothing wrong with her. It just, our vibes weren't matching. And so I appreciate how I feel, with our relationship. Who knows? Maybe we should do a dem
Thank you.
sometime,
I
or
totally think we
class or
should.
something.
Absolutely. That's actually my goal for 2024 to like get out there and really do the groups. Like even saying it is hard for me to get out of my mouth because I'm working through all of this, but yes, I mean, I have done groups and it's been amazing. Right. But it's still so scary on my insides. Oh my God, it's scary on my insides. But yeah, I absolutely want to absolutely do that.
Oh, we need to do it. It's so much fun.
I know,
just love,
and here's the thing. Once I get started, like within 3 minutes, I completely forget that I was ever afraid,
Right. And that's why, you know what? I think that might be why I make sure that the last thing I say before I start any spirit work, whether it's a reading or whether it's a course or a workshop or whatever, I feel like that I do that. I say right before it starts, I give it up to you. It takes that pressure off
it's
instantaneously.
So true.
Yeah.
It's so true.
Ooh, that's so interesting. I never realized why I did that.
Oh, I love this.
Thank you for the insight.
Like we're having our own epiphanies within ourselves during this. And I mean, hopefully everybody who's listening is having epiphanies within themselves, with everything that we're talking about. And I think that
that's why we do this. That's why we do. I'm sorry, but that's why I love doing podcasts, right?
Me too.
Because we're all here together. We're all here for each other. We're all here to learn from each other,
We are. I mean, my God, I say that all the time on my shows. We are so much better together.
Yes.
We're so much better together. And not only that, it's so much more fun, It's so much more fun.
Yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me, moving forward with this work and getting out in front of people. I mean, I dug my heels in. I was resisting to get on YouTube. I was resisting to do live streams. And that was my goal for this year. And I worked, I blew through all of that. Blazed the trail for myself.
You're fearlessly surrendering. That's
absolutely. That's what I have to look at every time.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's my goal for 2024. And if I like, I feel like I can do anything when I'm with a loved one, when I'm with a friend, and we're holding hands, skipping around like children. Having that childlike wonder and that childlike curiosity and that childlike fearlessness. Kids are not afraid. They're like, yeah, let's do it. What's the worst can happen?
We can learn so much from kids.
It is so true. Oh, I have a story for you. Speaking about that.
Oh, yes.
Okay. So my entire life, I have struggled with depression and anxiety. And it just falls in with the purpose that I came here, being gay through the 80s, through the AIDS crisis and coming out, all that blah, blah, blah. Right. Work through that. I'm still working through it.
Process in your mind.
It's just part of my wiring this trip around this lifetime. Okay. Yeah. So within the last 5 years, actually within the last year and a half, probably, my friend Sue brought to my attention this new treatment for depression, anxiety with ketamine therapy. And so there's this company called Mind Bloom, and it's microdosing, they do microdosing with psilocybin, very similar, except it's ketamine. So I signed up for this process. It's 6 treatments. And you put these tablets in between your cheek and your teeth, and they dissolve. And then you just kind of like disappear for an hour. And it's like you're not sleeping. You are conscious. But like for the way that I can describe it, it's like a forced meditation. It's a forced hypnosis. And you're laying there, and then and for me, because of the nature of who I am, I spiritually travel. So I'm like, and that's where all my lessons are. Okay. So speaking of the childlike, all of this fear that I've been experiencing, the vulnerability, the exposure in my very, very first session where I didn't know what to experience. I was nervous. I was anxious. My blood pressure was sky high. My heart rate was high because I was just nervous. I didn't know what to expect. I took the medicine within a few minutes, maybe 7 or 10, suddenly I was like, you have your headphones on, you have an eye mask on, so it's pitch black, and you're in this silence of this beautiful music. And all of a sudden in the dark, when your eyes are closed and it's dark, and all of a sudden the lights come on behind your eyelids.
Yeah.
Suddenly I saw my 3-year-old self. And I saw that little child, that little boy, and I just went up to him and I loved that little boy so hard. And I was telling this little boy, listen, you are perfect. You are enough. Don't ever let anybody tell you otherwise. You are enough. A lot of my own work through this life is, am I enough? Worthy, self-love, all that stuff. And immediately I looked into his eyes, and suddenly in a flash, I remembered what it felt like before being exposed to doubt, shame, guilt, fear. I remembered what it felt like on your insides, that potential, that possibility, that overwhelming sense of, I can do anything. Yeah. And what's the worst that can happen? And that was huge. And that like I said earlier, that childlike fearlessness, they aren't afraid of anything. And to have to remember what that feels like in this mind, in this heart, in this body, to what it felt like before being exposed to all that doubt and fear. Holy mackerel, that's huge. And and that's a message for every one of us, everybody who's watching, everybody who's listening, that might have been experiencing the fear and the insecurity and the doubt and the lack of confidence and the uncertainty. We all can tap into that inner child. That's huge. Wow.
It really is. And, it's so interesting because I really feel like that we all have something, right? We all have something that happened to us along our way in this lifetime that, and when we take those steps to recognize it, at the very least, recognize it, there's a freedom attached to that.
Oh, liberation times infinity.
Yeah. Yes. Liberation. Oh my God. I love that word. I love that word. I literally was just I am not lying when I say, I think it was Tuesday. No, it was yesterday. Was it yesterday? Whatever day it was, yesterday or the day before, I don't know. I took part in a healing thing called, darn it, it's something like the constellations. It was like, it had to do with the constellations. Darn it, I can't remember it. But anyway, it's basically there's a facilitator, and we take this sort of, it's not like you take a trip or anything, but like you get into a meditative space, and then you assign yourself like I was like, there's a whole bunch of people, right? And so this person is my mother, this person is my daughter, this person is my grandmother, like everybody's assigned. And then what they do is they look at the screen and they say, well, this about you and blah, 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 blah. So it's interesting because it's kind of intuitive, but yet, so the bottom line is that when I was a kid, and I don't mean to, my mother's like sitting here talking in my ear, I can't believe you're going to tell them this. but the reality is that when I was a kid, I was very rambunctious, and I don't think I was ADHD or anything, but I was a bunch full of energy, We didn't have ADD back then. Well, we didn't have ADHD, let's put it that way. But anyway, so they would go on vacation and take my sister with them, right? She was 8 years older than me. It was like I had a completely different childhood than my sister did, right? And that's okay, right? Yeah. But I struggled with that because I felt forgotten. Okay. And and I've done a lot of personal development work to get to that and to figure that out. Why, why I feel the way I do. So that feeling of being forgotten, right?
Yeah.
So I knew that that's where this was going the other day when I was doing this course, and it totally came up, and I was able to let go of that feeling of being forgotten, because it still rears its ugly head.
Oh, sure.
Like constantly through my life. Like, I can't believe that they forgot me. They, and it's like when I use the word forgotten, like in everyday life, it triggers something in me, but there's like this, for some reason, ever since then, and they said over the next couple of days, you're going to have sort of epiphanies, and you're going to, but I don't feel like, and it's not like I feel 100% free,
right?
But I do feel not as much energy around that anymore. The idea of feeling forgotten, there's not as much energy around that.
That's
And I
awesome.
have to tell you, that is, I can't believe I just told that whole story, because that is something like my closest people around me don't even know about that. So how cool is that? Yay.
It's
So you
very
have this
cool.
way of getting people to open up, Jeffrey. Oh my gosh.
Thank you for telling that. Thank you for that share, because like you said, you still feel a little trigger about that word forgotten, but there's not as much energy around it. That's healing, right? That is healing work. And as we know about healing, it's a process. And we hear about this proverbial onion, the layer upon layer
Yeah.
upon layer
Yeah.
upon layer.
For
And
sure.
here's the thing: you're like, you go through something like that, and you're like, yeah, I'm healed, hallelujah. And 5 minutes later, you're triggered. You're triggered again, and you're like, oh crap, I'm not healed.
Yeah, totally get it. Yeah, exactly. 100%. That's
Yeah.
the way we are. But you know what? Again, we have to I think we have to be like understanding of ourselves and like
Mhm.
easy with ourselves, because we're all works in progress. And I think that
Truth.
the more we start to really understand that about ourselves, whether you're in this work, whether you're a light worker, whether you're not, doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You gotta go easy on yourself, because we are
Oh,
all, and
it's
I say this
so
all the
true.
time, and if anybody's listening that ever hears me talk, they're gonna know, oh my God, she says this all the time. We are spiritual beings having a human
Truth.
experience.
Mhm.
And because of that, I allow myself to drink wine. I know a lot of
Absolutely.
mediums
That's
don't
why I
drink.
came here. It's one of the reasons I came back.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest.
I know, right? It's a good thing. And we won't talk about tequila, but anyway.
Yeah, truth. That's my celebration drink. But yeah, you know what? You're right. We have to be kind with ourselves and allow ourselves. We have to give ourselves grace. And I always say, you know what?
Yeah.
Splash a little grace in your face and move on. It's all good.
Yeah.
Give yourself the
Yeah.
permission to be messy, because
Yeah.
hey, that's why we're here.
Yeah. And you know what? It's really important for us to keep reminding ourselves of that,
Mhm.
because the more we sit in, and I'm thinking about, like I was saying before, that loved one that doesn't really believe in what I do.
Yep.
The more I say that, the more I feel like I just want to embrace this person, because it's we're all works in progress. We are all just trying to
And
have
here's the
that
thing.
human experience.
Here's the thing. When we really look at the core of that, they've just forgotten who they are. They've just
Yes.
forgotten the truth in who they are.
Yes.
And that's all it
Yes.
is. And so
Yep.
when we can look at that truth and view this through the lens of compassion,
Yeah.
I mean, don't you feel the shift in all of that? And there's no more trigger there. There's no more
Yes.
anger, resentment, blame. It's like, hey, that's where they need to be. So we just meet them
Yeah.
where they are.
Yeah.
And it's
And
okay.
that's what got me through it,
Mhm.
having that attitude, because, I mean, it's like, some people, I'll just say it this way. When I came out
Mhm.
as a
Yep, yep,
medium,
yep.
it became like, I thought the people I thought that were going to be really accepting and get it were like the ones that were like, really? Seriously? I mean, the hippie people in my life, I thought for sure they'd get it, and they didn't.
Wow.
you know?
Yep.
But isn't that funny? But
It
it's
is.
like, I just realize at that point, I just got to love everybody. And like you say, have compassion for them for where they are, as much as I need to have compassion for where I am. So, I mean, my husband, not into this stuff at all. Like, not even close. But he keeps me grounded. Like, there's a reason why I'm with him, for sure.
Totally. Mhm.
I mean, because I'll get off a session like this that we're doing now, and I'll be like, oh my God, I feel so good. I feel so good. And I'll open the door. I'll be like, oh, this was great. And we're here. What are we having for dinner? I'll be like,
Yes.
oh my God. But that's what it's supposed to all be about.
Yep.
So So loving this.
Lauri, I know, me too. I feel like I could talk to you like for all day long. We could have an 8-part miniseries, 8 straight hours.
Oh my God. Because you know why? Because when you're talking about with like people,
Yeah.
when you're talking about the work of spirit and what can be done, the conversation really is endless.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's
yeah, I love
totally,
that.
it is.
I appreciate you having me here today. This was
Ah,
so much fun.
thank you
Oh my
so
God.
much for being here. Yeah. And,
Oh my
but okay,
gosh.
before we go, I would like you to tell everybody where they can find you, talk about any classes, events, workshops, whatever you got coming up, you want let everybody know about, please do. And then just give everybody one last piece of words of wisdom, words of advice,
Oh,
whatever you'd
and
like
you
to
know what I'm
leave
gonna
everybody
do?
with.
I'm gonna pull a card.
Excellent.
I love pulling a card. There's something about the card that is so tangible for people to understand. So,
Lift your cards
okay,
back
but
up again. Hold on.
first,
Lift your cards back up
okay.
again.
Oh, Sacred Forest deck by Denise Lynn. No,
Got them right here.
no.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, my mouth is agape. For those of you that aren't watching this, my mouth. I mean, do you know how many thousands of decks there are out there?
Look at them all.
Thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch too. Oh my God. That is
That
hilarious.
is hilarious. Okay.
Absolutely hilarious.
Go.
Jeez. I tell you. I told you we're supposed to know each other. Okay. So my name is Lauri Albert. You can reach me at laurialbert.com. And if you sign up for my newsletter, first of all, I'm not one to bombard. Like, I don't send out every other day stuff, right? But if you sign up for my newsletter, you get a discount coupon code for a reading. Okay. So the discount on a reading, and you get access to my private meditation page. And so I have like the Meet Your Spirit Guide meditation on there, which I always giggle about because I was talking about how I used to fall asleep during meditations, right? For Meeting Your Spirit Guide. So, but this is a good one anyway. And there's gratitude, there's just a few different meditations on there, so you can do that. As far as what I have coming up the pike now, oh my gosh, I am getting ready for the new year, and I'm going to start, and God willing that this all works out. So Spirit, it's all up to Spirit. I'm leaving it up to Spirit, but I'm going to start sending out, and as of course, I just said that I don't bombard people with emails, but starting on January 1st, I was thinking of telling people, having people sign up for daily affirmations. I'm not going to try to sell anything on this thing. I just want to empower people, okay, in their own affirmations. And every day would be a new affirmation. And it may only be like one little line, maybe a paragraph. I don't know, we'll see. Every day is going to be different. But I'm going to do starting on January 1st. And if you sign up for my newsletter, I'll be sending out a thing like sign up for it this way kind of thing, okay, to get the daily affirmation. So I'm excited about that. And then I wrote a book called Manifestation Journal for Beginners, and I'm getting some really great feedback on it because I don't sugarcoat it. I don't talk about how, if you just, think happy thoughts, you will get everything you ever wanted. I don't do stuff like that. I look at it from a practical, like, point of view, right? So I'm doing it that way. And then, so I'm going to be doing, I don't know how this is going to morph out yet, but there's going to be either a workshop or a multi-week course where we all get together and we manifest stuff together. So There's going to be something about manifestation. Haven't quite worked out the details on that. Every Tuesday night at 4 p.m. my time, Pacific time, on my Facebook page and my YouTube page, I do a show called Conversations with Spirit, which I want to have you on as a guest, Jeffrey.
I would love to.
Fun. And then every Thursday night, I am live on Insight Timer. Are you familiar with Insight Timer?
No.
Jeffrey? No?
No.
It's the world's largest meditation app. It's called insighttimer.com. And I'm not a salesperson for them, but I am a teacher on there. And every Thursday night I do lives on there and I give readings. So I would love for you to join me. I would advertise my spiritual development class, but I just started it already. It's too late. So let me pull a card. Wouldn't it be funny? Why don't you pull a card too? from this deck. Can you even imagine?
Got it.
Okay, and I just dropped
Got a flyer.
cards.
Yep.
Okay. Oh my gosh. This is ironic. I just pulled the toadstool card and it says growth.
Oh my gosh.
Okay. And which one did you get?
And healing. You can't really see that word.
Oh my gosh.
Growth and healing.
Growth and healing. Seriously, this does not get any more bizarre. I mean, seriously.
It's kind of everything we were talking about today.
Yeah, it is. It is. Allow yourself, you know what? When you surrender, the message I'm getting about this, sort of one of the themes that we were kept. What in the world? My mother was an English teacher, so she did not like that. But one of the themes it felt like that we were working on today was talking about surrendering. When you can surrender to whatever your process is, whether you're involved in spirituality or not, when you surrender to the process, that's where the growth is. That's where the growth is. Now, the second card that flew out was manifesting dreams.
Oh my gosh.
Which is so ironic considering what we're talking about. We're talking about growth, and we're talking, what was the card you pulled up?
Healing.
Healing, right?
Yep.
This is the time for that because we are in eclipse season. This is the time for that.
Oh, completely.
And growth. That's how you manifest your dreams. So, wow, that was extraordinary. I can't believe we pulled the same card, the same deck.
Thank you so much for being here, Lauri. I'm giving you a hug from here.
Thank you. Virtual hug to you. I appreciate you being here so much. You're such an amazing human, and I appreciate you.
Well, it takes one to know one, so there you go.
So many more years of friendship. Yay.
Yes, and I want you on my live stream. Let's continue to talk about more work between us because there's so much to do. Yeah, and I love it.
It really is. So thank you so much.
All right, you guys, you've been watching and listening to another episode of Something Super Spiritual. I'm your host, Jeffrey Peck. Please join us next week with another amazing guest. Have a wonderful Halloween safe weekend. And here we go, rolling into the holidays. All right, I love you all to pieces. Thank you again for listening to the Something Super Spiritual podcast. If you know someone who would enjoy this episode, please do share it with a friend. For show notes, links, and to purchase a mediumship reading, my website is somethingsuperspiritual.com. You can also easily subscribe and follow the show on your favorite app, sign up for my newsletter for bonus content, and to keep the conversation going, you can easily join the Facebook community. It's all right there at the website, somethingsuperspiritual.com. Signing off for now, namaste.